make that arrangement.
I have never been one to shy away from questions, even if they sound dumb. I'd rather know immediately than continue to feel dumb. So.
Absolutely. All right. Yeah. How are you, Jennifer?
I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good. Waiting on.
Bit of information. I will be at the council meeting on Tuesday.
You will.
Yes.
Okay.
Surgery's been postponed till next month.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, good. That's a long one. It's
Not surprised.
all right. Right.
Hi, Ryan. Well, by having those appointments, at least maybe we can get a quorum without.
Right.
With
We got Kathy
people.
West coming, and then Amy's working on one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. Oh, you can. Yeah. Oh, well, no, Daniel just couldn't make it tonight, so he asked Bess to chair. That's why, I think why Mallory put, yeah.
You just spread it out more evenly, that's all.
Get everybody out of harm's way.
That's when the fights start.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, the last meeting is always.
It's a tough month. Yeah, and really before the ordinance, it could have been. Is that you're talking about the December meetings? Yeah, it could have been rushed. The mayor said this time to get it back to the council, one way or the other. So. Yeah.
It's been hanging.
Well, and the fortunate thing, I was thinking too, that if, no, there's 9 members, so there has to be 5. Yeah, now as I understand, the bylaws were changed to allow for less, but the code never was. And right now, in code, city code trumps everything, so that needs to,
Oh, I didn't realize, I didn't know that.
yeah. Hey, all right. You just can't help yourself, can you?
I know. I know. I can't. I also studied
Anitra.
Anitra.
Okay, I'm Michael.
It's nice to meet you. Sorry, my hands are cold. Oh, okay.
How are you?
So we've got a spot for you up here. Yeah, you jump right in. And Simon is also, this is his first meeting as well.
Okay. She was only 4 pounds. I didn't know. Round it up.
I've got the name tag in front of that one, but it's up to you. Yeah. You're welcome. I mean, if you want to sit up here with us, it's up to you. You're welcome to. Unless you want to sit back by yourself and stay out of everything.
Light means
Red light is
live
on.
mic.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so. It is 7:04 on December 12th, and I will bring our meeting of the Equity and Inclusion meeting or committee to order. And I'll go ahead and begin with attendance. Ryan,
Here.
Jennifer,
Here.
Simon,
Here.
and Anitra.
Here.
And next is approval of our minutes from November 14th. Anyone in favor of approving those minutes?
A motion to approve.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those are approved. Any comments from the public? We will not sit here in silence for 5 minutes. Okay. We have a review of the ordinance 9664 prohibiting camping and sleeping on public property. That is in our thick packet. No, it's not. Yes, it is. Okay. So has everyone had a chance to read that yet? Awesome. We're going to review it first and then open it up for discussion. So let's go ahead and take a minute there. Go ahead.
Well, it just dawned on me that I probably wasn't clear enough in my memo. This is the same one as last time because just to be, let you all know, no changes have been made because we never got it to council. But it just dawned on me that.
The one piece of addition is the feedback that that is now included,
Right.
correct?
Right, the ordinance itself that's
Right.
in the packet is the exact same as previous.
Okay.
But yes, then the fifth thing in here was the recommendations from November 27th.
And then the last time you sent information out, did
Mhm.
it include the October 15th date for the emergency cold weather and emergency lodging events? Or is that new information as well?
That's new, because there were comments previously on, and questions on what NAC provides, so I thought I'd throw that contract in, for the information. Not only the cold weather, but it also has the emergency lodging portion of the scope too.
All right. Is there any places we want to discuss first, or anyone who wants to open our discussion?
I suppose I would like to.
Go for it.
Okay, so if everyone can be a little patient with me, this is my first, meeting on the committee. So I've tried to consume as much as I could, past meetings. I've watched the last, I think it was like the last three, read the memos and the ordinances on it. I think my feelings about it pretty closely mirror yours, Bess. And I, at the risk of, taking things back further, I still kind of question the necessity for it at all. So it was originally introduced in an August memo by Chief Freeman. And in that memo, it was basically introduced on the heels of the Supreme Court decision for, Grants Pass v. Johnson, that came in June. And it seemed like to me, reading through that, or at least as much as I could, that it was about cities like ours having the ability and the responsibility to police that for the health and safety of the city. And I don't really see the gaps that it seems like this is supposed to cover. In Chief Freeman's original memo, it does actually lay out what our current ordinances are that we have in place, the things that are used to police this kind of issue already. I think it was Mike had mentioned last meeting that this is a brand new addition, but that doesn't mean that there aren't already things in place to cover this kind of thing. And so I guess one of the things for starters is in Chief Freeman's original memo, it states that the purpose of this is to get us into compliance with the Supreme Court's decision. And I kind of fail to see where we are out of compliance with the Supreme Court's decision. And there are a few things that have been touched upon that kind of make me question the necessity of it all. Like when Officer Holm was in here explaining things and was asked about statistics or just figures to show that this would be like an epidemic or an ongoing issue. Some of the examples that he brought up were, actually every example that he brought up was specifically about incidences that were happening on private property. And those are places where we do have recourse to deal with an issue like that already. One of them wasn't even about camping or sleeping. It was about somebody asking for money of a patron at chapels. So unless the ordinance covers not allowing unhoused individuals to speak in our city, that doesn't really apply either. And so just going through those, and then like furthermore with the like having recourse already, the idea of blocking easements and blocking right-of-ways and blocking sidewalks, we already have policies in place that cover that. Just as an example, the other day I was driving down the alley behind the old Quick Trip, and there was a house that was doing construction on their driveway, and they had the alleyway blocked off by a couple of bobcats. And I called the city, I called the Public Works Department, the Public Works officer went out there and told them to move immediately. We already have rules in place regarding blocking sidewalks and easements and things like that. Another thing that had been mentioned in the past was about its potential threat to the levee and the levee district. Now I know that it's a little strange about that being, public space versus space that is like under the care of the United States Corps of Engineers. I know that it is at the very least prohibited land. So if anything, the restrictions on, going through there are higher than they would be in public places generally. So this feels heavy-handed. It doesn't really feel necessary to me at all because it feels like we already have everything in place to cover this. And I still don't think that the committee, even though I haven't been here before, I don't think the committee has been shown anywhere where there are gaps, where the police department doesn't have recourse to enforce things that need to be enforced already.
To
And
kind
that's
of
it.
piggyback off that, have we received any kind of the requested documents or statistics that we've requested? Like, is this even an issue in our city? I know that we've asked for that.
I don't believe so, because the tracking is part of I guess what's being started, but there's not the historical tracking of it. No.
So in the memo that I ended up writing and did not get to Ryan and Martin, because good intentions are always a pathway to, well, you know where they lead us to, but I'll tell you about that expensive trip later. On the final page of our document, there is the memo that I wrote for EIC feedback and a couple things it does hit on. We kind of boiled it down to 3 big ideas. Extreme transparency. I think, Simon, one of the biggest things we discussed in our first meeting on this was the fact that we're not pushing people out, but we're pushing people out. Idea that kind of came from the ordinance itself, but then if you look at the full body of the ordinance, we were saying, well, it doesn't involve our unhoused population. But if you go back and read the actual ordinance, it does say homelessness. And as we looked and worked through that, there's this idea of like, is that the right language to use? And also, call a spade a spade. If you're writing this bill because you are afraid of potential threats of a population you're worried about in the future, the biggest criticism citizens in North Kansas City have had is a lack of extreme transparency. And that's one of the things we address in that. So I would ask everyone to take just a minute and look at the 3 things that are addressed in our feedback and make sure there's nothing else to add, since we do get this like extra little bump of time before this is due again.
No. That's packet days tomorrow.
Okay, so right, we do have time.
Right.
Great.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why without it making the last meeting, figured you guys are meeting again, and yeah, thanks.
So that's the final page. Literally just go to the back and flip 1 page over. It's sent from my husband's iPhone because I had no email at that time.
As we keep talking about this and just reading through what you wrote up in the memo too, I just keep wondering, are there things we really want to change in here, or do we just want to recommend that they just don't implement this at all? Because I agree with Simon. I don't see a lot of benefits to it, and I don't know what we would change that would make it beneficial.
Bess, may I?
Please, I gotta gather here.
Okay, so coming into this tonight, after reading all of this, and kind of trying to understand how we as a committee act, like in the idea of official actions, things like that, reading about it, my concerns go beyond the necessity of it, and also, like you all have done, like deep into the language of it as well, if it is going to be something that is passed. But I'm not even at that point, and so my first thought was, like, I'm not sure. I assume that we act mostly in recommendations to the council. And so my first thought was either A, table it for the next meeting, in which case we would hopefully have all members, and those of us that are new can continue to consume more information because I still feel pretty far behind. Or B, just move to make a recommendation to the council against implementing this ordinance. And I think that's something we can do.
Hey, yeah, absolutely. It's kind of how I figured it. The recommendation would be one of three, either approve it, don't approve it, or changes. So, yeah, absolutely, that's one of the options.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was saying. I mean, like, as we talk more about it, it doesn't seem like there's a lot we've really felt, or really anything we thought would be particularly helpful for the community. I don't know if we want to keep working through the language on it, or if there's enough of us that think that we would just want to recommend against implementing.
My concern, and part of my job, my 9 to 5, which is a 7 to 5, is building DEIA. Workshops for teachers, lessons for students, lessons for adults, and diving into the own work myself. In those conversations, a lot of people have said legislation like this is coming. And part of that has been like centered around, we want to be at the forefront. I don't know why this is a thing people want to be at the forefront of, because it others individuals. It is pushing people out of a community I enjoy being a part of, and I am intentionally raising my child in. But at the same time, I want to make sure if people think this needs to be done, we have a strong recommendation for it. While I think, no, I think this is an overreach. I think it's unnecessary. I think we already have the pieces in place that we need. And I don't see, there's no data that we've been given, and the anecdotal data we've received is not apples to apples. Because of that, I would be extremely confident saying we see no reason to have this bill. But like you said, we're an advisory committee. We don't actually get to do anything about it after we've said, don't do it. So the way I see this memo going is more of a like, we recommend you don't do anything. We table it. If it becomes a problem and we actually get the data necessary, then here's what we say. Like, if someone proves there is a burden on our community, that this is like becoming unsafe, it's becoming unsanitary, whatever the concern is, then here's the things you should look for. Here's the things that need to change. Here's how you prove this is something we need, or here's how you change it. But my concern is
It'll happen without us.
it'll happen without us, which we've already seen people not slowing down, individuals not slowing down to say, like, actually, like, are the things we're saying matching up with what we can provide? Does the language meet an equitable lens? And is this something that it's like not something we're dropping at the end of the city? We're not dropping a group of people outside of our city limits and saying, like, done.
That is really how it feels like it's written.
That's how most cities, unfortunately, are treating the struggles with finding a sustainable solution for houselessness. And unfortunately, this ensures that North Kansas City is another city that says, out of my city tonight, and leaves people on the street.
Can I ask a clarification for probably Anthony and Mike? Is it possible, or I guess when we, move to recommend against the new ordinance, have some explanation as to why, or at least a request to, like, if this continues to come and they really feel it is necessary, like, to say, okay, well, bring the next thing to us again, and then we will, if you're going to force it upon us, let us create more equitable language in what you already have for us. Is that something that can happen?
Absolutely. I would hope one or more of the committee members would come to make a presentation at the next council meeting of your recommendation, whichever way it goes. Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that, because I was actually, as I've been pouring through all of this, questioning my allowance to speak at a city council meeting as a citizen going forward. Now that I'm a committee member, I didn't know if I could still do that.
Yeah.
You would actually, it'll be in its own agenda item during the regular portion of the meeting, regular agenda, what it's called. But as a member of the EIC, any of you would be able to come up and speak during that.
or several.
Not limited to the 5-minute public comment, yeah.
We can all get them together.
Absolutely. And if, one thing that I've heard, and best, I understand, if the recommendation is don't approve it, don't take any action on it, the EIC, the committee can still work on, on the side, have, like you said, so it's ready. Should it ever come back, hey, we've already, it doesn't mean you have to stop looking at it, so, yeah.
It's really like any other city ordinance. You can, come back to it later if it should pass in whatever form. But your recommendation before the council is important. And a couple of members at least could present their own views on it at the council meeting, and you'll have the interaction with council members at that time. To make your case.
I don't want to step on anybody else's toes. Like I said, I am the new member, so I don't want to anybody is, feel free to rein me in. But if we put forward our motion is to just recommend against having this ordinance, and that is an agenda item on the city council, and they would like members of the EIC to actually speak on the reason for that recommendation, I would be willing to lay out some of the reasons why I just laid out, like just explaining just now. But again, like I said, I don't want to step on anybody's toes, and anybody else feel free to say, no, I think I got this, Simon.
My initial plan was to go and present this at city council, and if you want to join me on that venture, I would love to have you. Anyone else want to come? Hang out with me on a Tuesday night at 6? Not everybody at once.
I mean, I can come for support, but I don't want to speak.
Come for solidarity.
I am right there with you. I will be there with support.
I actually love that. I think that sounds great.
Yeah, same.
And this wouldn't be the first time that I stood up there at a council meeting and yelled at the council. So. Yeah, this time it feels a little more official. They are Tuesdays at 7 p.m.
6 p.m.
6 p.m. It's not every Tuesday, is it?
First and third Tuesdays.
Yeah.
So I think, Michael, based on that, I would like to edit this and then put it in the memo form and then get it back to you. Mike, what time do you need this back to you? Tomorrow?
I apologize.
What time tomorrow's packet day?
Oh,
I'm very thrown off because last packet day was.
it was a Wednesday before Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm like, what day
Yeah.
of the week? I feel like I'm in a twilight zone.
Well,
right
and
now.
then we ended up with some
Yep.
temporary absences that day, which yeah. So ideally, it'd be great to have, I'd say, by noon. Gauging, it might be a short.
I think what I'd like to do, and please advise me on this because I'm not sure what the best practice is I'd still like to include, like, here's our areas of feedback as, like, part of our why, or why, like, this actually doesn't work for us. But I'd like to overall just stamp, like, hey, our suggestions, no thank you. And then say, in the future, if this bill is looked at again, here are our primary areas of feedback. Just so that's, like, on record somewhere. So if, like, for some reason it gets to a point where we don't have as a large of a group showing up for meetings, or we can't have a group meet to put something together, we say, like, oh, wait, no, we still have this thing.
Yeah.
Sunshine laws, go find it.
Yeah.
So I'll get that to you by noon.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be great. And, I sent you the template, but email it to me. I'll slap it in a template.
I am no longer driving through the backwoods of Arkansas, so I have access to my email. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
no worries. No worries. All right. But
So if we decide that that's what our recommendation is, do we need to actually have like an official motion for that, or?
Yeah, that would, it'd be better to have a
Because it was
motion, a
like what the
second.
three options: approve, reject, or approve with stipulations.
Yeah,
Okay, so I guess,
yes, it'd be much better.
Does someone have a motion for our recommendation of not approving, but including future recommendations on ordinance 9664?
I would like to move to recommend against implementing the new ordinance.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
I.
If that closes out for the review of 9664, we can move on to our discussion of municipal code language updates. And I don't know who is in charge of that.
Well, it used to be my,
I think the person in charge of it is
Yeah,
actually in
she's-
the audience tonight.
yeah,
so
she's no
looks
longer on
of
the
shame
committee. And then it
from
was
the eyebrows.
Daniel and I were the other two on the committee. I did have a chance to review it, and there were some good suggestions. I didn't get to go in depth with it. I just, I also took a wandering trip through Well Intentions. So I did review it before I came in today, and I liked that what was sent. Basically, it was just some updating to certain languages, and we've got the, I don't know what they're called, the numbers of the sections and code and stuff. So I will take a little deeper look at that, and I can send it out to the committee or present on it next time.
For our new friends, do you have any idea what we're talking about?
No.
No.
Great. Can we fill her in or them in?
So we have been going through kind of the city ordinances. I think we started this about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, and we've just slowly trying to work through languages that are outdated, potentially offensive, and that's kind of what we were doing. We're in this. We've taken parts of it and done searches for just keywords. I think disabled is one that was in there a lot, but it also was in relation to humans and vehicles. So there's some, doing just a general search is not, and replacing those kinds of words aren't going to be very easy. But just like I said, disabled was a really big one. Homelessness or homeless was in there a couple times. So that's what we're trying to do, is just kind of modify the language, update it to current times. There was a lot of references to like the Lord and acts of God and things like that, which are colloquial, not necessarily offensive, but there may be better language that we could use for it. So that's the gist of it.
Do you guys have any questions about that? Or any desire to join Jenny on this endeavor?
I just have a quick question, because, so like I said, I'd watched some of the few past meetings, so I guess I did know just a little bit about like kind of the broad strokes of what this is. But it sounds like it's not really updating any language for like specificity or to change like the, law to be more broad or specific or anything like that. It's just modernizing the language objectively. That's pretty much it.
I think that is probably as far as that we are going to be able to go at this point, is getting it more modernized language, referencing things where it's referencing he, that may not be, I know that there's some items we can't change because they go above city law or city code, and it's state level. But doing as much as we can to update the language, make it more cohesive, and also at this point, we're not recommending to do away with any of the code or make it more broad or anything like that. We're just trying to identify places that need to be updated, and then we can go from there.
But I think like if you were working on it and there was something you identified in that process you had concerns about, I think it's still within our scope as a committee to make recommendations to the council on changes.
And I think, Councilmember Saper, I believe you brought up the example of city code that was, this is an example from like pre-COVID. So please forgive me if I am wrong in this, but I believe we had an individual find some city code that was about like protecting your own property. If you thought that someone was getting into someone else's property, you could also protect them with the use of like deadly weapons, and how someone like brought that up to someone's attention, and we were able to go from having it completely legal to shoot down a neighbor to not at all. So our city code was written at one time. However, it is not a permanent facet. As we are reviewing code for language that is outdated and throughout time, and as we know better, we do better, we are changing things and actively updating it if we find things that are no longer acceptable or have better options in language or are just practices that are out of date. Those are also things we should look for and make recommendations to council about. That is part of our call to a more equitable North Kansas City.
I do think that kind of clears up what I was wondering about, and it makes me get the gist of it.
All right, and then I guess we'll be moving into our council member liaison, city council updates.
You're doing exactly what you should be doing. I'm very, very happy for this committee at this point. If you choose to recommend, as you did, to not go forward, that's exactly the kinds of comments you need to make. If it's changes, that's exactly what you need to make. And this applies to anything that the city does. It really does. That's the broad mandate of this whole committee. And as far as anything that's ongoing on the city council or the city government at this time, this is perhaps the most significant one in terms of equity and inclusion. But there are others that have been done in the past that you will find as you go through more of the ordinances. I think they're in pretty good shape, but that's pretty cursory on my part. You're going to be looking at them more closely. The only other things are the ongoing issues of the city. For instance, we have a new agreement with the YMCA, and there are certain requirements in there that they need to fulfill. And they may involve equity and inclusion. And if these come forward to you, that's something you need to take a look at. I think we're covered in this new contract, but in any agreement, things emerge that you hadn't anticipated. And sometimes the contract prohibits you from making those changes, but sometimes they're in the contract, but they're just not enforced. That might involve equity and inclusion, about who gets kicked out and for what reasons for using the facility. If it's a legitimate complaint that is not involving equity and inclusion, well, that's part of their operating. If people are making, but if it's used In any other way, it violates. So all I can say at this point is continue with this line of thinking and procedure. I'm very glad. Thank you.
Any other announcements?
I'm gonna ask, I'm gonna send, I told Simon and Anitra that I'd send them the bylaws, the EIC section of the code, what else did the strategic plan. Would the rest of you like it? I say, should I just send it out to everybody, just
Please.
to have it fresh and towards the top, so to speak? Okay,
Yes.
all right. Thanks.
Nothing other than just be aware of our winter holidays that are coming up and celebrate with those who are celebrating.
Oops.
There are lots of them.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say I'm excited to be here and thank you all for, having me aboard. And, I look forward to being the part of the city that looks at how we operate through an equitable lens, if that makes sense.
Channeling my best, Daniel. Welcome. We're really excited to have you.
I'm going to piggyback off of Simon that I am truly excited to be a part of this. I know that in my 9 to 5, as you say, that I advocate that way. But being able to do it in my actual city is very exciting to me. So I'm excited to see what is to come.
One other thing, the filings for city council positions and mayor are now open, and they're the 31st of December. And if you know people, or yourselves even, who would like to run for any of those positions, please consider it. And the filing is open. Filing is simple and straightforward. No real hassle. The hassle comes after you get elected.
Well, if those are all of our announcements, then at 7:41, I will close this meeting.